Jumping into it. Hello and welcome to another MovieBroofers.com virtual pubcast. I'm your host, Ken Ekman, and joining me today is Hawk Ripjaw.
Hi.
Bill Arsena.
Hey, guys.
Bill Leon.
Take a drink whenever an episode of the show starts with me or Bill cracking up because of something Ken did.
Usually what something I did involves is pressing start before we're actually ready.
And
Yes.
Wrapping up a conversation very quickly.
Yes.
So this is going to be a rare episode where we literally have one movie to discuss.
There's really only one movie to discuss.
Now, that said, it's a 3-hour movie, and so...
I was just going to point out the length. I was also going to point out the fact that this might beat Avatar for best, highest grossing worldwide film.
Yeah, I don't want to say best, but definitely highest grossing.
I hope it does, just because, honestly...
Well, maybe it is better.
James Cameron has this ego trip about him being, him being the big box office draw.
I did it twice.
And Avatar is not a movie that holds up over time. So
I beat myself off. I beat myself.
Yeah. Now
I like this movie better than Avatar.
Yeah, I like a lot of things better than Avatar. I don't.
Yeah,
I'm not going to say that I hate Avatar, but I am going to say that in terms of like great movies of the last 20 years, I would put Avatar nowhere on that list.
I'm going to go
great
again.
movie the last 20 years. It's not one of them.
I like John Carter more than I like Avatar.
Ooh.
I don't like
John
Avatar.
Carter is low-key dope, though. That movie's pretty darn good.
It's kind of got his thing going for it.
I maintain John Carter has plenty of things going for it, whereas Avatar has one thing going for it.
Oh, the 3D tech and all that stuff.
Yeah, the whole immersive world aspect.
It kind of changed filmmaking a little bit because now you got people doing or help change filmmaking a little bit.
It changed filmmaking for a while, but the 3D thing has died off so quickly.
Oh, I'm not talking about the 3D thing. I'm talking about the VR or AR or whatever they're calling it.
There were technical advancements that it made,
like shooting while also living in that world.
One thing we're going to talk about though in this review of Avengers Endgame is the fact that the least favorite aspect I have of all of these movies is the fact that 99% of the background is CGI and it just feels fake to me.
Well, interesting to point out, they did a behind-the-scenes video, I guess propaganda video celebrating Marvel, celebrating themselves. This was on Facebook, or maybe it was on Facebook or Twitter. I think it was on the Rotten Tomatoes account. Kevin Feige talked about how they did the epic spin around shot from the first Avengers movie.
Right.
Said, we shot that like in Arizona, and Iron Man and the Hulk weren't even there.
Yeah.
It was just the other cast members.
And by the way, if you watch that on an HD TV, it's obvious.
I don't know. It looks pretty. Pretty good.
There are tells, and here's the thing: in like an animated movie or a video game, I am perfectly okay with CGI because
the whole world
you are
CGI, essentially
right, because everything you're seeing is, and so your suspension of disbelief is there. But when you're dealing with live action characters and then CGI elements, inherently, you're going to be able to tell that one is not like the other. And it's just not, it doesn't work for me. And now that said, I'm the only reason I'm starting with this, preloading with this, is because that is my biggest nitpick about the Marvel series as a whole and this movie in particular. But we're going to progress to talking about other things about the movie in a moment here. So I just wanted to get the negative out of the way.
I have a funny work story that relates to what you're talking about. So I work at a pizza shop. We sell pizza by the slice, and sometimes you'll have a few slices left, and they'll make a new pie for slices, and it looks fresh. Sometimes my boss, who's this really fidgety, he's a doddering old Italian man. His English isn't great. He'll be like, "Oh, put the old slices up there," and you put these old pizza slices next to the fresh ones, and it's just like you can tell. And I always say one of these things is not like the other. I say it almost every day.
Mozzarella has a very weird thing that happens to it after it's been melted one time. It's like it loses it loses juice, and when that happens, I'm not saying I don't like cold pizza, because I do love a cold pizza, but to compare cold pizza to fresh pizza is apples and oranges.
Right.
Yeah, but like not in a bad way.
Oh, I mean, I'm not saying I hate it, but if you have a pizzeria, and you have the fresh pizza right next to the cold pizza, or not the cold pizza, but the pizza that's been sitting in a heater for a while, you can definitely tell.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, I'm still waiting for my my restaurant idea to come, to get some traction. It's called Leftovers, and you call the restaurant and you order the food you want. It's either pizza or Chinese food, or
it comes in microwavable containers.
No, you order it and they cook it for you, and then you go pick it up the next morning and it's cold. They put it in the fridge, and you can have leftover Chinese food without having to buy the Chinese food, the day before, and have to not eat all of it.
Why don't you just be open in the morning? And just cook it fresh.
Because fuck getting up at 7 in the morning.
Plus, what's better than leftover Chinese food?
Yeah, that's pretty good. I mean, I like it like hot.
Yeah, I like Chinese food fresh. It's great leftovers. Chinese food is some of the best leftovers you'll have, but I still do prefer it when it's fresh.
So welcome to the shawarma portion of our Avengers review.
Which, by the way, I totally, completely absent-mindedly had shawarma the night I saw Avengers Endgame.
Oh yeah, I remember that. You said
basically what happened was, before I left for the movie, I asked my mom. I said, "There's this Middle Eastern place that's really good. Do you want to try it?" And she's like, "Sure." And so I'll pick it up on my way home. Cool. And then right when I was standing in line at the place ordering it, I was standing there, and I was thinking, wait a second, this is shawarma. I've come full circle with the Avengers. I was eating shawarma right after Avengers was over, and you know what? I'm okay with that. By the way, shawarma is pretty awesome if you've never had it.
Yeah, no, it's shawarma, gyros, all that stuff.
It's
culturally, but
it's wonderfully seasoned meat served in flatbread and creamy sauce. How do you get better than that?
I love creamy sauce.
It's pretty rare. Yeah, wasn't there a skit on Saturday Night Live back in the '90s? Like, you like the juice, huh?
Yeah,
that was Adam Sandler, right?
No, that was Rob Schneider.
Oh, Rob Schneider doing an impression. I'm sure he got the bit from Adam Sandler.
He probably did, but it was he was talking to the guy that plays George Costanza. He was the special guest on the show.
Did you forget Jason Alexander's name?
Yeah, I forgot Jason Alexander's name, and I should remember he actually was.
Hey! You're not being cool about fire safety right now.
Yeah, I know.
That was the period of time, though, when Saturday Night Live had a weird. There were a lot of Greek restaurant jokes. Remember One Brother Restaurant with Paul Reiser? There are two of you, so why is it called One Brother?
This video is supposed to be about Avengers.
I have
We're losing viewers.
What viewers?
There's some viewers. We have like 300 subscribers or something.
Yeah, there are some.
Maybe we got some after the fact. But
they like
nobody wants to talk about Saturday Night Live right now.
to Madre when they watch Marine.
I don't know. I kind of like the small talk stuff first.
I do too, but people are coming into this video. They want to hear about the Marvel stuff.
Do they?
It is what it is.
Random stuff is funny, but like.
Yeah, it's not like this video is titled some indie film that nobody gives a shit about, so they're just tuning in to hear our banter.
Let's talk Her Smell. Oh wait, we already did that.
Let's talk Silvio.
We can talk Silvio all fucking day.
Okay, and that's not to insult those movies, but
no, those movies are pretty.
So yeah, you make a very valid point, Bill. So let's get into Avengers Endgame. And since I've been talking quite a bit here, Hawk, you haven't talked for a little while. What was your impression?
I would say we got to structure this. I would say let's keep it spoiler free for a while. We'll kind of give our thoughts and spoiler free, and then we'll get into spoilers.
Do we really want to
So
do spoiler free? Because at this point, I mean,
Well,
It's only been like a week. I mean,
yeah.
or not even a week. It's been.
Did you see how many billions of dollars this movie made? Most people in America have seen this movie.
Yeah,
Well, the starving kids in Africa that are listening to this podcast, they haven't seen the movie yet.
Okay, all right. Well, Hawk, you go ahead and start it off. I'll let you set the precedent.
Okay. So yeah, let's do spoiler free for a little while, and then we'll make a big deal about how we're about to do spoilers, and then we'll spoil the shit out of it.
Yeah.
So I liked it better than Avatar. It's it takes place right after Infinity War.
Like seconds after it. Yeah.
maybe a couple days actually.
Well, I would argue that the opening scene.
Oh, the opening.
Yeah.
The opening before the title crawl
is the end. Yeah, the end of Infinity War, and then it's the jump to 22 days later, where Tony Stark is stuck in space with Nebula. And so I just want to say right off the bat that at the end of Infinity War, a whole bunch of people got snapped or dusted or however you want to Thanos, however you want to the term you want to use.
I'm thirsty for Thanos.
You what?
I'm thirsty for Thanos.
Yeah, so you two remember the meme that was going around that Thanos was sexy right after Infinity War came out. Everybody's like, you know what? Thanos is kind of hot.
They had an image where they were able to make Thanos have a naked butt. And I was like, kind of like the girl on the beach with the dog pulling on the bikini.
Yeah.
And I thought,
I definitely, I can see it. He's a hootie tootie disco cutie.
I thought, the guy's muscular. He's Josh Brolin. I mean, shit. Yeah.
I've been looking up a lot of Thanos memes. Believe me, I've have a hunger for Thanos memes. So if anybody has a good one, send it to us. A whole bunch of heroes get dusted, and it leaves pretty much only the core original Avengers plus change. And I like that the first half of this movie was very focused on that group of heroes and a very slow tone and a lot of character stuff. Like, this movie is really focused on completing character arcs and really bringing this franchise to a close.
Yeah.
I wasn't as hot on Infinity War because that movie was just a string of set pieces for the most part until, about the ending. It was just so much. It's like Civil War where you barely have time to breathe because everything is happening nonstop.
Now, to be fair, they were pretty spectacular set pieces. And really, when you get back, I don't mean to bring things all the way back to the origins of cinema, but when you talk about the early days where it's carnival, entertainment, where it's literally nothing but spectacle. When you take it back to that, I mean, Avengers: Infinity War was really good spectacle.
I'll say this much. I would say this is very Kill Bill like, where Infinity War was the big bombastic spectacle, and the sequel Endgame is more like the kind of it takes the time to develop the characters and show. So this is how these characters who went through this are experiencing their lives through this point, and it takes time to kind of develop that. I appreciated them on that level, and I can see the polarization because the people who loved the action from Infinity War might be less inclined towards this movie because it doesn't deliver as many big set pieces.
Yeah, I think that's valid.
I would say it has one mega set piece,
Right. Well, I mean, there is action, but the thing is, there is a mega set. There's big action set pieces in Kill Bill Volume 2 as well. I'm just saying, to me, I think that's the closest comparison I can come up with, where you have the one that is just pure, just explosions and awesomeness, and then you have the second one that's a little bit more contemplative.
Yeah, I would say that in volume 2, the biggest set piece was her versus the bride versus Bill, and that was only 5 seconds.
Exploding palm,
death punch or whatever.
Really, the big action set piece there is her versus a wooden box that she's buried in.
Oh yeah, I guess that was kind of an elongated sequence. Yeah.
But I wanted to say, Bill, you say that the beginning of spectacle in cinema, the carnival thing, like weren't those movies like 20 minutes long?
Yes, they were very short.
2 hours and 45 minutes or something.
But what I'm getting at is at the heart of those, it was basically like reactionary movies. You know what I mean? Like, for example, the train coming right at the screen, or an elephant, or George Méliès, going in for wonder and fantastical elements.
One of the very first pictures was just called The Sneeze, and it's like 10 seconds long, and it's just a dude sneezing.
Right. Of course, back then, people were, easily entertained by
pure spectacle.
this marvel that is light producing the illusion of motion.
As a critic, I would say that The Sneeze delivers on its promise.
Yeah, I guess I would. But at the same time, there's something simplistic and artistic, about that. Capturing something so mundane.
Yeah.
And there's not just something behind that. I think.
I just I preferred Endgame because it's also what it's Infinity War was like didn't have a whole lot of substance for me. If you think my favorite Marvel film and like many is probably still Captain America: The Winter Soldier.
I would agree
because that is a terrific action movie, but it is really heavy on story and theme and plot as well. And so, you have these wonderful action set pieces that are really exciting, and the stakes are high. Everything about that movie, character-wise, I think is really solid. You have Captain Steve and Natasha, like they've got this work relationship that's got a little bit of sexual energy to it, but they're not. I was shipping them, but they're not going to get together. There's political undertones. There's a huge leap forward for the story in the MCU, and really good action. And so it also has this kind of slow pace to it when it's not in the action phase. And I agree the action in Infinity War was good. It was exciting the first time I saw it, but I rewatched it and I fell asleep. Not to say that Infinity War is not a good movie. I liked it quite a bit, and it's very well made. It's just not quite what I was looking for in a Marvel film, because all of the best Marvel films, in my opinion, are the ones that have a good balance of character and story and action. Another one being Thor Ragnarok, which was very developmental for its characters. It had a lot of stuff going on to advance the MCU.
Well, not only that, but I think Thor Ragnarok is where they finally realized once and for all that Thor is just a brilliant comedic character. And the fact that they were trying to take him a little seriously in the other films pushed things a little too far. And so they just said, you know what, let's develop the comedic aspect of his personality a little more.
Yeah.
Because the things in Ragnarok that works...
What we do in the shadows.
Oh yeah,
let's hire the guy who did What We Do in the Shadows.
By Taika Waititi, yeah.
And by the way,
which was a bold choice.
And by the way, I'm going to say that Taika Waititi is still my favorite part of every movie that he appears in, including Avengers Endgame.
Oh yeah, he's Cord.
The MCU is known for hiring Disney, I should say, Marvel, Disney. They're known for hiring directors that are kind of low key. Like not super well known. I mean, the Russos who directed the Civil War, Avengers Endgame, and the Winter Soldier and Civil War. They had been they'd done before this episodes of Arrested Development, episodes of Community. And You, Me, and Dupree. With Owen Wilson.
Ooh, boy, I used to have a poster of that. They were giving out posters of that at my local theater, and I just took one as a joke because it's Matt Dillon on one side and what's her name from American,
Hudson. Right?
Kate Hudson, and Owen Wilson's dumb face in the middle. Like it was such a fucking stupid poster to me. So I put it up. I had it up on my wall for years.
It's right in the middle. It's classic comedy.
Well, Disney. The reason Disney's formula for bringing in these up and coming talented directors has worked so well is very simply that it's a trope that's been played out over very much in the music industry, which is you find someone who's just starting to really peak in their talent, and you find someone who's hungry and you give them a sandwich.
Oh, and plus the director is going to adhere to Disney's format, which is why all these movies have such a uniform look in terms of color grading and shot composition. However, Thor Ragnarok was totally not that. It's one of the most vibrant and good-looking Marvel movies. It's so unique.
Well,
there's no way that
2
Shane Black
as well.
would have been able to make The Nice Guys if it wasn't for him making Iron Man 3.
Yeah.
And so that kind of trend carries on, where they find someone who's got a lot of talent but is sort of underexposed, and
I would
they
also
throw them a bone.
say, wait a minute. Another caveat to what you're saying is willing to play ball.
Yeah,
Can we agree on that?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, absolutely. And Shane Black willing to play ball. Lethal Weapon. That's a perfect example.
I meant in the context of the Marvel films, specifically.
Sure, yeah.
Or really any studio film.
Because directors who have diverged from that have been kicked out. And the truth is, that's been sort of the blessing and the curse of Marvel films, in that you do have to follow the formula, which does limit you as an artist. But they give you, for the amount of money they throw at you, they give you a huge amount of freedom. It's just that freedom cuts short of diverging from some specific elements. And that's why people, some directors have found it limiting. But those directors who have found it limiting have found, outlets elsewhere, versus the directors who work with Marvel are directors who will certainly go on to do great things elsewhere, but they're willing to negotiate for a little while in order to get some money, and hopefully that will help them with their careers later on. It's a very transactional thing when you think about it.
Peyton Reed.
Yeah.
The last thing I wanted to say about Infinity War is not to discount it entirely in terms of theme and character, because it was essentially Thanos' movie. He was the protagonist of his story, so to speak. And the way that that is... there is a permutation on that with Endgame I thought was really interesting as well.
Everything in Infinity War that follows Thanos works really well. It's some of the diversions that are hit and miss, I would say.
Yeah, it's fucking bold. They ended Infinity War with Thanos snapping his fingers and wiping out half the universe. You would think maybe he'd get the Infinity Gauntlet, it'd be to be continued. It's like, oh, I wonder if the Avengers are going to stop him. And then this movie's like, nope, they don't. The whole world is fucked right now, and you're going to wait until next year to find out what happens next. So you have this gloom hanging over the first half of Endgame that's really good. It's got some comedy, but the comedy
is merely meant to soften the blow of
the comedy comes out of a place of depression.
Yes,
especially for one character, which we'll get into.
But, the first point of Endgame that deals with comedy occurs in the most depressing circumstances possible, and that's Tony Stark and what's her name, alone on the ship, and essentially Nebula slowly dying.
Mm-hmm. And they're playing that football. Yeah, and she's like, I would very much like to play again. And he's like, all right, yeah.
That's the thing about paper football is a fun game when you're doing it.
I just like some of the detail in that scene as well. It's really mild, but Tony Stark records the message for Pepper, and then he falls asleep on the floor. And then while he's asleep, Nebula comes over, puts him into a more comfortable position, and she gives this kind of affectionate shoulder. Brushes against his shoulder a little bit, like it's not,
it shows how she's changed as a character over the last few films, and it's a wonderful little moment, because Nebula has been kind of, in the last couple films, I was wondering how, that they really hadn't given us an idea of how much she's changed, and I think this film really cements that.
Yeah, she's kind of a dick, but she's really got a heart in this movie.
I wouldn't say dick so much as the issue that I think she has is very much daddy issues, where the character she has as a father is this horrible person, but because she's the second child, she's always had this pressure where she needs to perform, and so she's always trying to impress him. And when she's separated from him finally, she doesn't have a daddy she needs to impress anymore, and so she becomes her own woman. It's actually a really interesting arc.
I would say too, she's also like a PTSD survivor.
Oh,
Yeah.
definitely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
For sure.
I mean, and let's be honest, that's what daddy issues are to begin with.
Yeah, that's where that comes from in her case anyway, and Gamora's to a point. Of course, we know what happened.
There's a great scene in Guardians of the Galaxy 2 where Nebula and Gamora finally squash their beef and become allies, and I think that it not so much Infinity War because Nebula is not a huge part of that story, but in this one you really do see that arc pay off.
Yeah, absolutely.
Although I would say there's still more to the story. Like there's a kind of a to be continued to that aspect.
Well, we'll get into that.
We will get into that, definitely. Yeah, it does kind of come full circle in a way, for her, definitely.
Yeah.
So should we go into spoilers now, or
I think so. I think it's impossible to continue further in this discussion without
unless Bill and I just give our own general thoughts.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, I loved Endgame too. I wasn't so hot on it, like in terms of like if you were to compare, and of course you're going to compare this to the other Avengers films and the other MCU films. At this point, it's almost like no shit. You're going to compare it to the other films, and you're going to rank them, because there's just so fucking many of them. But if you were to look at it by itself, it is. And maybe as a part two to Infinity War, it is kind of like what we've said already, Kill Bill Volume 1 and 2 thing. Where the first one was like a spectacle, and this one's kind of more. It's got spectacle elements, but it's more grounded and more like arc driven, more conclusion. Like we gotta. That was the setup. This is the payoff. That kind of thing. But I think I like the first Avengers a little bit more so, just as a personal favorite. This is not even a nitpick. This is more like if I had to pick one that I could watch anytime and really like get into, and it would be like the first Avengers movie. Obviously, Age of Ultron's a little lower. Not that that's a bad movie. It's just it's not.
The reason I'm laughing is because the thought of somebody being like, hey, yeah, I kind of feel like I'm going to sit down and watch Avengers Endgame again.
Yeah, really. That's the thing, though.
On a 3-hour movie because you fucking feel like it.
I fucking went to see Titanic like 3 times.
I was going to say, I'm kind of that crazy person. I've
seen the Godfather movies anytime it comes on AMC. I've
seen the Paul Newman movie Exodus like 8 times, and that movie's nearly 4 hours freaking long.
Sure.
And I wouldn't even call it a great movie. I just find it entertaining.
Right. It's kind of like it's almost like Transformers: Age of Extinction for me. Like it's a long movie. You feel its length. It's not even all that good. It's definitely not all that good.
That's the most generous thing I've ever heard said about.
But
I would agree with that.
But for me personally, it's endlessly entertaining. I don't know. I don't know why. It just is.
I've seen Cat in the Hat 52 times in the
last. No comment.
A place that I am very much in tune with.
So with the first Avengers, it's something that I could watch, like if it shows up on TBS or whatever, and I'd be like, oh yeah, I had a great time watching that and everything. It was almost miraculous. I called it a miracle when it came out. That
and it is, because the idea of packing all of those big characters into one film was miraculous at the time, and of course now they've packed even more.
They've packed not just even more, but they've also like had to pack in film like the continued threads between
who grew up with the show Home Improvement.
They got Robert Redford out of the nursing home for this.
What they saying on Red Letter Media, where it's like there's all this hubbub about the old man and the gun being his final acting performance, and then like
just brought him up a
6 months later he's running around in an Endgame.
Well, he was only there for like a couple seconds
and I guarantee you he did those. He did that scene probably 2 years before that.
Yeah,
All right. So before spoilers, I guess what I have to say, obviously I recommend it. I really enjoyed it. Go see it. It's worth your time. Yada, yada, yada. It's going to make $1 billion.
Already has made $1 billion.
The thing I think, so my brother was worried about watching Infinity War because he hadn't seen it, and I was like, "Oh, you can watch Infinity War. You don't really need to see like every single film to get what Infinity War is about. As long as you've seen Avengers and you know who the core four are, like you can." But Endgame, on the other hand, like this is the payoff. Like you do kind of need to know exactly what has gone on with the past 10 years of these films to really appreciate everything Endgame has to offer.
You could maybe skip Thor 2.
Well, you can always skip Thor 2.
Speaking of someone who did skip Ant-Man and the Wasp as well as Captain Marvel, I felt like I lost nothing.
No, you didn't. You're right. You didn't. The thing,
as long as you kind of have some groundwork to work with.
Ant-Man and the Wasp it's fun. I like it, but I also I enjoy Paul Rudd in a leading role. Yada yada yada. I'm a comedy guy. So, but I think if do yourself a favor and look it up on YouTube, the stinger, the end credits scene of Ant-Man and the Wasp, which is
literally the only thing that this has to do with.
Yes,
he goes into the quantum realm to get material to help out the person that was the bad guy in that movie, and
it's a tense scene. It's a really tense
while
scene.
He's there, he's like, "Okay, guys, bring me back," and then we cut to outside of the machine, and they've turned into dust.
Right.
Yep.
That's the one thing that, like, when I was watching Avengers Endgame, I was like, "Oh, okay, so that must have been what happened in that movie." And after that,
you
I was
figured
like,
it, context clues, yeah.
Oh yeah, totally, yeah. So I lost nothing.
Yeah, I was wondering how they were gonna piece that, how specifically Ant-Man was gonna get out of that. They didn't really get into how he got out of it. I kind of assumed he did the same thing he did in the first Ant-Man movie, where he put
So let's get into spoilers. A rat crawls across a keyboard.
Yeah, a rat goes on the control thing, and that's
what it just fucks it up, and then I thought that was just there. I didn't think
that's all. That's what causes it. A rat randomly crawls across the keyboard.
Now, it should be noted, his van. It's been 5 years since the snap. His van is now in what do you call it? Like a
repo.
It's been repoed, maybe.
Oh, okay.
It's in some sort of storage locker where Ken Jeong is the security guy. And
is that true?
I think that was Ken Jeong.
Yeah, that was Ken Jeong.
That's a woman.
No, that was
Ken Jeong.
I don't know. Ken Jeong is kind of soft looking, but I mean,
I guess the Russo brothers did Community. All right, okay, maybe.
Yeah, that's kind of what I got out of that. And Ant-Man pops out of it like holy shit, what the hell just happened? And he's like, guys, where is everyone? And we have this whole sequence where he's figuring out the events of the previous 5 years, which for him went on for 5 hours.
Right.
Specifically, he asked for hope when he.
He looks for hope, and then he asks for hope, and then he looks for his daughter, because when he realizes time has passed and some big event has happened, he's like, "Holy shit, was she part of this?"
So, quick question: did his daughter look way the fuck older than 5 years more than?
Yes.
A little, but I'm willing to give him a grace period.
Yes, except I will say that the one thing that's worth noting is women do go through puberty much faster than men. So it didn't trigger me in any way, shape, or form.
She looked early 20s to me.
No, I didn't really.
I wouldn't go that far. I would say 17.
I watched Hollywood movies long enough that I will accept someone as a high schooler even if they're in their 30s.
Right,
that's true.
Or like in some bad B movies, they're 40s. Like shit, those are pretty wild. Like those biker movies where it's like the gang,
God, I mean the Wild one with Marlon Brando. It's supposed to be like
all of the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies.
That was the first one.
Pretty much. Except the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies are already just fucking weird as it is, so I don't even think about that.
No, I don't either. It's just that Flash Thompson in that movie is hilariously not a high school kid.
Oh, He's jacked in that movie.
He's Joe Mangiano or whatever his fucking name.
Yeah.
I mean, as long as it's not like, I don't know, William Hurt that you're casting as a high schooler, you're probably okay.
William Hurt now
thing is a high school movie that's like all 40 and 50-year-old people just like.
Howdy do, fellow kids.
Yeah, what if they remade Never Been Kissed, but instead cast William Hurt as the lead?
Hey, kids, I've never been kissed.
And you'll never be kissed.
Because you're fucking
William Hurt as Ace Ventura.
Yeah, as an elderly Ace Ventura who now is somber and melancholic.
Ace Ventura, When Nature Calls, is about having a urinary tract infection.
Oh my god! Everybody, do your best. William Hurt, do not go in there. I'll go first. Do not go in there. That wasn't good. It's William Hurt's a hard.
When I think of William Hurt, I think of him in The Good Shepherd for some reason, where he's The Good Shepherd and that David Cronenberg movie, A History of Violence. But in The Good Shepherd, he plays this like CIA guy, and he's like, my mother gave me chocolates when I was a kid. They're a weakness of mine. And I think of that. He has a very brief performance, and the director Robert De Niro must have told him, "Yeah, your character, he loves chocolate." So that was his thing. He used that, and I was like, "Oh, that's how he used that crutch."
I always think
I like chocolate.
I always think of William Hurt in Lost in Space. He's like, "I love you, wife." Time portal. He just looks at his wife's like, "I love you, wife."
I love you, wife. He's not. It's not. When it comes to
there's a
like
pause
those,
there,
Shyamalan shit, where it's like, oh, in the future they talk like that because you know,
they're emotionless.
of course, Lost in
the
Space.
movie, it's
Lost in Space was written by Akiva.
It's literally like,
yeah, Akiva Goldsman. Yeah.
In the movie, it's like, "I love you, wife." Like, there's a pause there.
Was there?
And it's so awkward
that's
and
how he
just
says-
weird. Like, who talks to their wife like that?
That's how he expresses sadness, by pausing.
It's a
and
brief
thinking.
pause. Maybe I'm embellishing it a little bit, but it's a
But
brief
it feels
pause. He's like,
it feels like a fucking crevice that we've just fallen into. You know,
"I
like,
love you,
I love you,
wife."
woo, wife. You know, something like that. But Avengers Endgame. I guess now that we're getting into spoilers, William Hurt is in this movie, by the way.
I was going to ask, was he in it? Because I didn't spot him except for
He was at the very, 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 very end. But no, this movie starts
as General Ross.
Yeah, but no one really
does he pop up at the end.
He pops up during the. This is kind of the end spoiler, so I don't want to completely give it away right now. But
go ahead, we're in spoiler territory.
Okay, at Tony Stark's Viking funeral.
Yes.
Or not really Viking funeral. It's more like they just sent him off into the lake, but his body into the lake. And they're going from character to character to character to character in this really nice single feeling take. And General Ross just is in the background, you know.
Every time I see Benedict Cumberbatch, he looked very gaunt in that shot.
Oh yeah, well maybe that was just the makeup. I don't know. Maybe
it might have been. He looked
unhealthy.
Like he looked like he lost weight.
He's been he did go through a period of time when this movie was filming where he was doing the I don't know if you have heard much about the theatrical performance of Frankenstein.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
He was that was the one where what was it? Who was the director of that? That was shit.
Billy Zabka?
No.
Gary Gray?
No. He
It was a stage thing. Yeah. No.
He directed Train Spotting. Danny Boyle.
Danny Boyle?
Yeah, Danny Boyle's Frankenstein. The concept was every week or two they would switch places, and
one actor would play this guy, the other actor would play the monster.
Yeah,
that sounds like something Steven Soderbergh would do.
Yeah, it was Benedict Cumberbatch and who else? Hold on, I'm just trying to.
This is not
Really
important.
Johnny Lee Miller. Okay, yeah. So basically, every other week, it was like Johnny Lee Miller would play Frankenstein, or Benedict Cumberbatch would. And so during that period, they would just be really super like both of them.
There was a moment in Endgame that when we reviewed Civil War, Bill Arsenault had said there's this moment where Ant-Man like gets Captain America's shield back, and he's like, "Here you go, Captain America."
Oh no, I believe this is yours, Captain America.
Yeah, and then in this movie, before he's about to go, when the Hulk is experimenting with time travel, before he like gets zapped into the quantum realm, he's like, Captain America's like, "You got this," and he's like, "I do, Captain America."
I do like that.
That made me think of
he does another thing where he's like, "That's America's ass."
That was good too.
With such pride.
Speaking of which, the Captain America versus Captain America sequence is my favorite thing ever.
Oh yeah, that was pretty good. He's like,
that was so fucking cool.
I will say,
the past Captain America's like, I can do this all day, and then the current Captain America's like, yeah, I know.
It was a badass scene. Like they throw their shields at each other and they bounce away, and there was fighting. Like that was a really energetic fight sequence.
The special effects are completely seamless. Like you can't like Chris Evans fighting Chris Evans. Like you don't question it for a second. Like
except to Ken. Ken would say they're not seamless.
I disagree.
Those shots I would say are you know what, I would call that part seamless, because the thing is, both of the actors are in that scene. It's just that they shot it at different times and they use special effects to cover it up. That's fine. What would be different is if he got into a gigantic costume and was like Mega Captain America or some weird thing. Where you're like, yeah, that's a computer that's doing that.
That would be weird.
And
he gets like a Mecha Captain America.
Mecha America.
Oh, kind of like Bruce Banner in the Hulk Buster.
Captain America Busters and there's fucking.
And by the way, I do actually have a positive CGI comment to make in this film.
Oh.
How awesome was Bruce Banner and the Hulk embracing themselves as one and the same?
Oh yeah, that was an interesting character decision too.
It reminded me a lot of like Rocky Balboa, the movie, where it's like he's now a restaurateur and he's like just chatting it up with fans.
Well, to be fair, anyone can run a restaurant. You know, it was going to be successful. I don't know, but you know, anyone can technically do it.
I was listening to an episode of Gilbert Gottfried's podcast, and they were talking with a person who was like kind of a weirdly an expert in failed restaurant chains by celebrities, and he just a list of ridiculous restaurant concepts.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah.
So I bet you anything. Who was Bill? Who was the announcer for WWE for a while on commentary? Mean Gene Okerlund. He had his own burger joint chain, regional burger joint chain. I think it was called Mean Gene's or something. And I think it went under eventually, but I remember specifically going to that website to see if I could order something and have it sent to me. I couldn't, by the way. So anyways, Endgame starts, we already explained, it starts with Tony Stark in space, stuck in space, and the heroes kind of dealing with their loss and everything. Specifically, it starts with Hawkeye about to have some hot dogs with his family, and weirdly, they go through different condiment choices.
They're talking about putting mayo on hot dogs, which the daughter makes a comment about it, but it's still just like, who the fuck puts...
Yeah, she's like, who the fuck puts mayo on? And he's like, oh, that must be the boys. You know, he's like, that's just what boys do. And then the little kid's like, I want ketchup. And I was like, I got nothing against the ketchup part, but the mayo is a little confusing, you know.
Speaking of someone who lives in the Chicagoland area, I feel obligated to say ketchup is a sin on a hot dog.
Oh, come on.
Yeah.
It's just...
I put barbecue sauce sometimes on hot dogs. I like to mix it up, but I don't put mayo on it because mayo is strictly for me like sandwiches or po' boys.
Okay, so this is from my roommate who is a dick and I hate him and I'm not. But back when we were friends, his response to "that sounds gross" was, "Have you tried it?"
Oh,
Which
Well,
I have.
a lot of
I've
people-
tried hot dog with ketchup, and I can say that it doesn't taste right.
I've had hot dog with mayo chup, which is ketchup and mayo, but not with straight mayo.
I kind of want to try it, honestly.
I bust out the "have you tried it" on people who poo-poo pineapple on pizza.
Pineapple on pizza is awesome.
Pretty good, actually.
Yeah, I've tried it, and it works, but it has to have the right. It has to be complemented with the right ingredients. On its own, it's terrible. It needs It needs the right. It needs good fresh ham or Canadian bacon. And let's not get into this train.
Let's move on.
So when Endgame proper starts, Tony Stark's dying in space, and we see this wonderful shot where he's like about to fall asleep. The oxygen is getting low. There's no food left, and we see his face slowly illuminated by powerful light to the point where it's warming his face and waking him up. And it's Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel returns the ship to Earth. They have a big confrontation with Captain America and the rest of the Avengers, where they talk about like, okay, you fought Thanos. Like, what is his deal? What can we do to stop him? And Tony gets into this big speech, this big monologue where he's like, look, dude, you go fucking deal with him. He's all thin and gaunt and dying and everything. And he's like, I tried to do it, Captain America. Now we got no trust in each other and blah, blah, blah. So they develop. What's that?
It was a good speech, like character-wise. But
I didn't do a good job in paraphrasing it, but it was a good, he really goes for it. And that gets into the whole resentment that he has towards Captain America not telling him that Bucky killed his parents when he was under Hydra control. That goes back to Civil War, of course. But that was also a thread that I liked to see resolved in this movie, was those two learning to come back together in some fashion. So the team finds out that where Thanos is from Nebula. They go in the ship piloted by Rocket and Captain Marvel, only to discover a wounded Thanos has destroyed the stones. He used the stones to destroy them, and now they're pissed. So Thor cuts his fucking head off.
Yeah, that was surprising.
It's like, I went for the head. After Rocket's like, what did you do? And he's like, I went for the head. And then cut to 5 years later, parts of the Earth are kind of coming back a little bit. There's some restaurants, coffee shops, stuff like that. But there's other cities that are still kind of depressed, and like major cities like San Francisco, New York City, stuff like that are still kind of, in
the post. Well, the post-credit scene of Infinity War shows like some people were driving, some people were piloting helicopters, like all
right. It's like the fucking rapture happening.
Yeah.
The credit scene of Infinity War was better than all of Left Behind with Nicolas Cage.
Well, that
goes without saying.
I would also say it's better than the entire trilogy of Left Behind with Kirk Cameron.
But that was a fun experience we had together. That was
Left Behind 3 with Kirk Cameron was kind of awesome.
It's like, you can't stop him. He's the fucking Antichrist.
The thing is, as far as Antichrist movies, it's all about the Omen 3.
Yeah.
With Sam Neill.
Oh, yeah.
If you haven't seen it, watch it. It's pretty amazing.
So what got me about the post-Snap world, and we didn't see other worlds, but Captain Marvel has kind of suggested, since this happened across the universe, I'm going to each known planet and checking on people and seeing what I can do to help. And there's almost like this council that's been established by the Avengers with Wakanda's Okoye, with War Machine was out in Mexico checking on something. I think it had to do with Hawkeye.
The cartel
killing a bunch of cartels. Yeah, for the only reason of because they're still alive and they're bad guys. And Captain Marvel out in space and Rocket doing his own thing. So what got me about the post-world snap on Earth was there were some places that were recovering, some places that were thriving, and some places that were still very much in ruin, as we saw when he came back and was trying to figure things out. What I liked was when Captain America goes to that group therapy meeting, that group counseling meeting, which I originally thought was just for soldiers, but it turned out it was for everyone, for survivors of the snap.
Yeah.
And there was a poster that they showed in the trailer where it's like, what do we do now that they're gone? And I thought, like, oh, the printing press is still around. There's still printers.
Yeah.
I was kind of like, oh, there's still people doing advertising.
I think the thing that was most interesting about the whole snap concept is he snapped out of existence 50% of all life forms in the universe. And so, of course, when you think of that from just a global perspective, and the fact that Thanos' own purpose behind this was to do it at complete random. The problem with going completely random is inevitably you're going to have some places that are affected almost not at all, but also places that are affected with a huge degree of, to a much higher degree than 50% for sure. And so that's why you have turmoil throughout the galaxy and throughout the universe, because you have, some places got unfairly benefited and some places unfairly failed. Now, I actually have a question about his snap that's interesting. Prior to the events of his snap, he was going from planet to planet, killing off 50% of the population of those individual planets.
Or sometimes the entire population, like when it came to Peter Dinklage's people.
Right. But so my question is, those planets that he's already taken 50% of their population, and he's now they're thriving, did they get reduced by 50% as well? And if so, how unfair is that to those planets that he already destroyed?
Well, remember, he's a madman. I mean, he may think he has an internal logic, but he really doesn't.
Well, and in fact, that's actually kind of the arc of this film with Thanos, is he realizes that his purpose throughout all these films was inherently flawed.
I do like what you point out. What you imply, though, is that this other planet that he's always been to, and he killed half the planet execution style. They're like, wow, thank Thanos that we have enough resources now. And then all of a sudden, half of them disappear. It's like, what the fuck?
We lost all of our scientists.
We lost all of our. Oh my god! The farmers, they didn't teach us anything, and they're gone.
But thankfully, there's still advertising executives.
There's still advertising executives.
To make those fucking posters.
There are still telephone cleaners.
What?
That's a reference to Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. It's okay if you didn't get it.
Yeah, I didn't get it at first. No,
there's an entire story arc for those not familiar with Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, where they in the book series, where they find a spaceship that's traversing the universe towards a new location, and it is full of middlemen. So it's got hairdressers. It's got
a Monty Python gag,
right? It's got hairdressers. It's got lieutenants. It's got people whose job is to sanitize telephones. Just weird things like that. And what they don't know is all of them are headed to Earth, and that's the foundation behind Earth's population is middlemen.
So Ant-Man comes back. He thinks it's only been 5 hours. It's really been 5 years. He finds his daughter. Everything's fine with her. So he goes, except she's a little bit older now, obviously. He goes to the Avengers base, tells them what he knows and that time travel is possible. They try to get Tony Stark back on it. He's not sure now because he has a child with Pepper. And then he figures it out almost by accident. He figures out time travel. He's like, okay, new Jarvis, let's figure out, how the equation works, blah, blah, blah. And it's okay, it's perfect. And he's like, what the fuck? And he falls back in his seat, like, holy shit. so he comes, so he's like, well, I gotta do it now, but I can turn back. And Pepper's like, no, don't, figured it out, So they start developing a time machine and come up with a strategy for getting the stones back. And very specifically, they point out two things. One, that it's going to be basically a time heist. They're going to go into the past at different places, points in time where they know the stones were, and they're going to get them. And the other thing they note is that this is not going to work like Back to the Future.
I like that a lot. So this movie spends a weird amount of time dunking on Back to the Future, but I'm of two different minds on the way this movie handles time travel. On the one hand, it kind of develops its own unique internal logic around time travel, and on the other hand, it plays it very fast and loose with that logic.
Well, it has to.
It has to. It never outright breaks the rules, but it kind of has this. I don't know if it might have been Red Letter Media that said this first before I did. Has this kind of like "don't worry about it" type of thing to it. Like it's going through this all so fast. It's like, you know what? Stop worrying about the rules of fucking time travel. No movie does it right. We're just gonna enjoy the movie. It's 3 hours long. Stop worrying about it.
But there are a few rules they kind of set up in that when that they're still going forward, despite the fact that they're going into the past, their lives are going forward.
Right.
So in a way,
you can't interfere with that past, really.
Not like big time. It won't it's not like a butterfly effect thing necessarily. Right. It might split off into other realities, so you got to be a little careful. According to what's her face, Tilda Swinton's Sorcerer Supreme, the ancient one. She kind of explains, look, when she's confronted, and the nice little bit too when Hulk Banner confronts her, he's like, hey, look, I'm looking for Doctor Strange during the Battle of New York, and she's like, you're about 5 years too early. He's over there doing heart surgery.
But what the Ancient One said is not that time travel interferes with it, but that the Infinity Stones hold together reality, and to remove one of them would cause her reality to diverge in a very horrible way. Right. She doesn't talk about time travel fucking with things.
No,
it's just the Infinity Stones.
She does say things could split off into nasty ways, and she ultimately gives up the time stone because she realizes, oh wait, Stephen gave Thanos the stone willingly, then it's like he must have known something. So okay, here you go, but bring it back, please. We're counting on you.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, I gotta remind these guys when we all get back in our regular time that we gotta put them back, which of course leads to a bunch of funny, almost fish out of water moments, like when Thor visits Thor the Dark World movie on what was Asgard. And with Rocket, and Rocket's trying to convince him to go through with it. Thor at this point is highly depressed. He's a little cowardly, and he's overweight.
He's put on some weight. Let's be honest.
Very funny, and his beard and hair is haggard looking and very unclean and stuff. He's very much the Big Lebowski.
For 5 years.
Yeah, he has. He even gets on the horn with Korg's opponent. He's like, look, I'm Thor. I'm the god of thunder. Don't fuck around here. And he's like, okay,
you don't log off immediately. I will go over there and rip your arms up and shove them up your butt.
Yeah, something like that. And Korg's like, thanks, mate. So
I want to say that I hate that Fortnite is in this movie. That Fortnite has been immortalized in Avengers Endgame.
Have you finished Santa Clarita Diet season 3 yet, Hawk?
No.
Oh, somebody flosses in it, and it made me really sad.
I could possibly be okay with that idea in Santa Clarita Diet because I love that show, and I feel like the usage of that might be mildly ironic.
It wasn't.
So I don't know what flossing is. Is this a thing?
It's a dance like you do. I can't describe it. Don't look it up. Just understand that
I won't because I don't know what it is, and so I feel so happy.
In the game Fortnite, you have the ability to make your character dance at random, and one of those dances has become this trend. It's called flossing. It's not a complicated dance.
I also know almost nothing about Fortnite other than it's sort of PUBG but more commercially viable.
I don't know what PUBG is.
Yeah.
I do not wish to continue discussion on these games.
Okay, let's move on. We are the kings of getting off topic.
So basically all these characters are going to these different worlds that we've already seen, or different timelines, or points in time rather, to get the stones in a heisty type way. Some succeed, one team fails at first, That was Tony Stark and Ant-Man. They failed to secure the Tesseract. So in order to get Tesseract back, they have to go to another point in time, but they have to be careful because they don't have enough Pym particles from Hank Pym's experiments. So they go back to 70s and are able to retrieve the Tesseract and some more particles. But during all these different moments, we see little character moments, like Thor visits his dead mom, who's still alive at that point in time, and she kind of gives him like some courage, of a speech, and says like, you should be who you want to be, you should, and you are this hero type guy, and
there was one thing that bugged me about that.
Yeah.
So when they start out, they're like, okay, we have only enough Pym particles for this very specific finite number of trips into the past. So why at that point did they not go to the past and get more Pym particles like right away? And
well, I guess they weren't thinking. I guess they weren't concentrating on that. You would think they would because they're the fucking Avengers and they have to concentrate on this shit. They've been prepping it for a couple weeks now,
I mean, it feels like something that at least one of them would have been like, hey, here's a contingency plan to save half of the universe.
Yeah, but they do. They eventually do it when they're in the past at base. And again, all the characters end up like confronting either past versions of themselves or past versions of people that they knew and loved, like Tony seeing his father again. Mm-hmm. Of course, he doesn't let him know that he's Tony. He just says like, "Hey, I'm some guy," or Captain America seeing Peggy, and they all start kind of reminiscing about things and stuff like that. The big thing that happened is when Black Widow and Hawkeye end up on the Red Skull planet to get the Soul Stone. And basically, there's no other way. They have to get the Soul Stone the same way that Thanos got it. They can't just like sneak behind Red Skull and take it or something, or beat the fuck out of him and force him to give it to him.
There's also a question. Well, I'm getting.
No, it's okay. But so basically, they have this struggle where it's like, okay, one of us has to sacrifice ourselves, and Hawkeye's like, it's got to be me, and Black Widow's like, no, it's got to be me, and then they have this little fight. And it ends up in this dramatic fashion where he's like hanging on to her or she's hanging on to him. And finally she lets go and he's like, oh, fuck, and she dies.
It does beg a question, though, to me, which isn't the thing that you have to sacrifice that which you love most?
Yeah, that was weird. Although I mentioned it to my friend and she said, well, now that Hawkeye's family is dead, the thing that he loves most in the world is Black Widow.
But it's in a platonic way. It's not like,
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess. It just to me it's like
a friendship.
I agree that that logic of that was a little bit dicey.
At the same time, what if you arrive to Red Skull empty-handed? What you have to go back and get the thing you love. That's
nothing.
Yeah, you get awfully complicated. It's like, okay, I'm gonna take notes. When I go home, I'm gonna get my old teddy bear. And then I'll come back and burn it in front of you.
Red Skull's like, wow, that was easy.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what if the person who came to that planet was a sociopath who literally loves nothing? Does that mean he's already got the Soul Stone? Like he's like, I have nothing that I love. So
Red Skull's like, look in your pocket.
Look in your pocket. Yeah.
What about a narcissist? Like, falls in the head, and then all of a sudden the Soul Stone appears in their hand, but they're dead.
So anyway, that was the big thing that happened. Now, when all the characters come back to the regular, to the current time, they come back like 5 seconds later after they left, something like that. And everyone's like, okay, did we do it? Did we get them? And of course, Hawkeye is there alone, and they're all like, oh shit, Meanwhile, when fucking Nebula and War Machine went to Peter Quill's heist at the beginning of Guardians of the Galaxy, where they just kind of punch him in the back of the head and then go steal the Power Stone.
That was amazing because you have the opening sequence of Guardians of the Galaxy is He's dancing, running around, and singing along to "Come and Get Your Love," and then you get a perspective shot of him. There's no backing track to it, so you just have Peter Quill's
headphones on, and so we just
then War Machine is like, oh, so he's an idiot, and then
was like,
they knock him out, and that was one of the best comedic moments in the movie for me because
really cool. Yeah, but because Nebula's now back in time, her current self interferes mentally with her past self, which alerts Thanos to the fact that the Avengers are doing this time heist and that Thanos eventually gets all the stones. So now that he knows that this is all going down, he's like, how do I get the stones back? How do I, or not back, how do I get them in the first place? Because they're collecting them for me. And also lets him know that his plan is flawed and that he's got to, change things up a bit, which of course leads to the final confrontation. Once they get all the stones together on an Iron Man Hulk hand, Hulk uses the stones to bring everyone who was dusted back. We don't see it immediately. We see basically the snap happen, and then Ant-Man looks off and he's like, I think it worked. And then boom, explosion occurs. And it's Thanos' ship. The Avengers base is destroyed. And now there's nothing but dust and debris and all this other shit. The Avengers now have to get together what little resources they have to fight Thanos again, specifically the core three, Thor, Iron Man, and Captain America. They confront Thanos, and then finally this big battle is about to take place, and we see quite a few revelations happen. The big one for me being the fact that Captain America is indeed worthy of Thor's hammer. He loses the shield. The shield gets broken like in half, and it's just this shard, this big shard of vibranium. And when it looks like Thor's about to get stabbed to death, the hammer flies out of nowhere, knocks down Thanos, and then comes back around and gets into Captain America's hand. And my audience stood up. My audience was like, yeah. And Thor's like, I knew it. I knew he was worthy. He said something like that.
Perfect payoff to Age of Ultron scene where you try to pull it and it just kind of moves a little bit and it makes Thor look nervous.
Yeah. I love how in this instance Thor was supportive of that. He popped, and to use the term that you and Bill use, Bill. The term that
popped.
I thought. I thought that was referring to erections until you explained it to me.
Not quite. Maybe
I saw these two men hitting each other, and I popped. And it's like, wow, all right, I'm fine with that, but I was surprised.
Yeah, I'm supportive of that. Whatever. So the battle is basically between these guys and Thanos until Thanos' army finally comes down, and then it looks like the Avengers are fucked until they get over the radio a little hint that there's help coming, in which case the Doctor Strange portals start opening in mass, and all of the dusted heroes and the dusted soldiers, everyone from that was gone previously, return. Black Panther, Falcon, Bucky, the Guardians of the Galaxy, Spider-Man even, and we get this great moment where finally Captain America says, Avengers assemble. And he says assemble so quietly, like almost like he didn't want to say it. But now it's like, this is the time to say it.
We even got Gwyneth Paltrow in Hulkbuster.
Not Hulk, no, she wasn't in Hulkbuster. She was in a like a female Iron Man suit.
Which, by the way, let me just say that
Wasp comes back.
That depressed me a little bit, just because I'm not the biggest Gwyneth Paltrow fan, and
I know Goop is kind of a weird thing. Yeah.
You have to know that Iron Man costume is going to show up on Goop at some point.
Just put this in your vagina, and it'll help you not to get a hysterectomy or something.
It focuses you. Yeah, she's willing to shove this jade stone up your vagina, and then you focus your energies in some bullshit like that.
Right, it's like pseudo, not even science. It's just pseudo snake oil.
I mean, I respect her for her beliefs in some things, but come on now.
Yeah, she's almost like Alex Jones hawking bullshit.
I do not respect those beliefs.
But anyways, she's here, and there's this wonderful little moment where they're all fighting, and Scarlet Witch is back, and everyone's back, and there's this moment where one of the women is about to go up and do something to Thanos or something, and someone says something like, who's going to help her, and Okoye is like, she's not alone, and then all of these prominent female Avengers pop up. And they're like, we're going to be badasses. And they start fucking fighting and everything. And Spider-Man appears and he's like, hey, Mr. Stark, it was really weird what just happened. It's like I was on the planet, then Doctor Strange came, and then he was like, hey, we got to go to Earth and blah, blah, blah. And Tony finally hugs him for real, which was a callback to Spider-Man Homecoming, where he's like, oh, I'm not hugging you. I'm just trying to get the door open for you.
Yeah, the hug was amazing. That was a good emotional moment.
That was a nice moment. Yeah,
yeah. And, it really, one of the best things about this movie for me is that it is for Tony as a character. It really closes that arc almost more than any other character. It's like Tony is a dick and a womanizer and everything in the first movie. He's obsessed with money and all kinds of shit. Like he's just a bad character in the first movie. Not in terms of development, but in terms of who he is as a person. And This movie resolves all of those, nearly everything, in terms of making him better as a person. Like it's one of the most satisfying arc closures for a character that I've seen in a franchise.
There was this great bit. It was a really quick one, where it was towards the end of the battle. Thanos has pretty much sacrificed his entire army in order to get the upper hand and to get the new glove, the new gauntlet that was created by the Avengers, which has all the stones on it. Captain Marvel has tried defeating him. Everyone's tried defeating him, and yet he's able to get the upper hand somehow. And Iron Man looks over at Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange holds up one finger. And then Tony just looks like, holy shit, like this is it for me. Like this is what Strange was talking about. This is my end game that's about to happen. And he's like, I know what I got to do. So he has a little fight with Thanos. He tries to get the gauntlet back. It looks like he doesn't have it. Thanos is like, I am inevitable. Then hits the snap, and turns out he didn't hit the snap. He just kind of snapped his fingers like normal. And he looks at the glove. The glove doesn't have the stones on it. The stones are actually on Tony's hand now. Tony's robot hand, and Tony's like, and I am Iron Man, and then he hits the snap for real, and it kills off the remaining elements of Thanos' army, including Thanos, which kind of takes forever to happen. They just kind of circle around Thanos for a bit, and Thanos just looks on like, oh shit, I didn't fucking succeed. And the resulting blast from the snap, because it takes a lot of energy to do, only Hulk could really do it, and even he kind of got wounded from doing it. This completely fatally takes out Tony. It's a fatal blow to him. And in his last moments, his family and some of his friends come up to him that were there a part of the battle, and they say, "It's okay now. You can rest. We're going to be safe." And he dies. So that's how essentially the movie doesn't quite conclude there. That's kind of the big emotional conclusion, but from there, we see the funeral. We see the world coming back together after all this has happened. Spider-Man's back in school. Hawkeye's with his family now. So on and so forth. And Captain America is now tasked with the mission of putting the stones back in their places in time. He does so, but when he's supposed to come back from the 5 seconds the time machine, sent him, he doesn't, and everyone's kind of like, well, where the fuck is Captain America? He missed his ride, so to speak. And there he is, sitting on a bench just a few feet away. Falcon goes up to him, and he's an old man now, and he's lived his life.
That old man makeup or the CGI, whatever it was, that was convincing. Old Chris Evans was really convincing.
It was pretty good, and it was kind of.
What's interesting is old Chris Evans kind of looks like Clint Eastwood.
Yeah.
So basically he explains a little bit that, like, well, when I was back there, I kind of thought, maybe I'd get in on a little bit what Tony, had. I'd start a life and everything. And he's like, oh, by the way, Falcon, here's my shield. I think the world, could use another Captain America and stuff, So that kind of sets up that new series that may be happening at Disney Plus.
This is the decision in the movie that has been most controversial, because a lot of people are saying it's way out of character for Captain America to make a selfish decision, and the whole idea of, I mean, consider the rise of Hydra, Bucky's life being tortured and forced to be a killer for all of those years, and he did nothing to help it.
Vietnam War, the Korean War.
Yeah, just about everything horrible that happened from 1946 to from like 1945 to 2008.
Remember that the movie establishes that by going back in time, you do not alter that timeline.
Yeah, so there's nothing.
They made that very clear. That
which does beg the question: how did Captain America get to that timeline again? Because
all right, check it out. Here's what it is. Here's what it is. It's still the same timeline. He goes back in time. Okay, it's established that Peggy has a husband. That dies before she dies. Okay, and he goes back in time to the 40s. Right before the Captain America that we know gets frozen in the ice when he crashes the thing. And so Steve lives with Peggy as her husband, who was previously unnamed or as an alias. And then he grows old incognito as a different Steve Rogers, while the real Steve Rogers, Captain America, lives on through the MCU as we already know it.
Okay.
Yeah.
That still doesn't explain the whole failing to prevent things like the rise of Hydra.
That's right.
But he can't do that because it's already going to happen.
Yeah, he can't do anything about that.
In his own universe, he could, potentially.
Yeah, but it would be like a facade. It wouldn't be
real. They say that you can't alter the existing timeline.
Yeah.
That's one of the first things that they mentioned.
All of this is moot anyway, because time travel is bullshit.
Don't worry about it. The fact is...
Yeah, exactly. It's right before Hawkeye tests the tech, is they mention it, and then the Hulk explains, like, oh, no, like, I can't remember what his whole thing was. Like, oh, if you try to go back in the past, you can't prevent the past, which is your future. That's going, it's a lot of silly.
Something like, why don't we go back to when Thanos was a baby?
Yeah.
Speaking of that, how awesome was it seeing Ant-Man get a babality?
It was okay.
Babality. You play Mortal Kombat, right? The babality where you turn him into a baby.
I know. That was kind of an obvious joke, I guess. It was. I mean, like, oh, haha, he's old now. He's young and he's a baby. That's hilarious. I thought that was kind of.
Yeah, that was
basic.
Pretty funny.
Well, I think the line that he has about, like, when he comes back and he's like, talking about how someone wet his suit and he didn't know if it was the young me or the old me.
He's like, no, it was probably me.
Like that was a pretty clever piece of writing.
That was pretty good. Yeah. So so that's how the movie ends. With him dancing with Peggy finally, and we cut to black, and it's like this nice little thing. What's funny though is when we get the usual Marvel like who's who character thing during the credits, like where they say Scarlett Johansson, da 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 dun dun da 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 da. It's a lot more somber this time. Like this is the end, kind of thing. And it's done up. It reminded me immediately of David Lynch's Dune, how Dune ended in the end credits, where it had Toto playing, and you see the character head shots of each actor looking at the camera, like, here's this guy, here's that guy, here's Kyle MacLachlan.
Yeah, it's so 80s sitcom like.
It was pretty funny. But at the same time, it was like, this is still fine. It's appropriate. It works for this story.
I thought it was cool how when it got to the core Avengers, you got the actor's signature as well.
Yeah, and the music ramped up. It kind of went, it kind of got a little higher, and then they got the signatures and everything, and that was nice. I also thought Stan Lee's cameo in this, his final cameo,
supposedly the
hippie was a lot more subtle than it was like in the first Avengers movie. In the first Avengers movie, he was essentially playing himself. He's like, superheroes in New York? Give me a break, And in this one, he's like, I'm a hippie. Like he was more integrated into that world.
You've heard the theory that all of these cameos are the same person. It's like this time traveling entity.
Yeah. Another time I was this guy.
What was it you were saying, Hawk?
He works with the Watchers, who oversee the entire universe. It was in
Right.
Guardians 2, I think, where he's talking to the guys on that planet.
Yeah, he was doing that.
Was that Guardians 2, or was that?
It was
Yeah.
Guardians. It sense that it was Guardians 2.
He's got the spacesuit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's talking on a little planet with the guys in their space, in the weird face in their space. He's talking to them, so that's kind of what solidified that theory. That
Then
he's
they start
overseeing.
walking.
And then he was. I liked it. Stan Lee was also in Venom.
Why?
I mean, Stan Lee was in a lot of things. He was in Mallrats.
Deadpool.
And then, well, Venom kind of made a joke out of it where, they interact, and then basically Venom's like, who the fuck was that?
I like to think that Mallrats was the first MCU movie.
Well,
which is great because you haven't seen Captain America. You haven't seen Captain Marvel, right, Ken?
No, and I don't think I will.
You want to because the Stan Lee cameo in that movie references
Mallrats. I'm familiar.
Okay.
He's Stan Lee himself. And he's on a bus. He's like, okay, I'm reading my lines from the script of Mallrats. Captain Marvel looks over, looks at him and smiles, and then moves on, So that was a nice little cameo. Kevin Smith, of course, he'll cry at just about anything. He posted a picture of himself crying when he realized Mallrats was a part of the MCU.
Yeah.
So he's like, "Oh, I'm so touched."
Yeah, I would care more if Kevin Smith hadn't completely destroyed his own career through stoning.
I don't think getting stoned, not from
just well. Here's the thing. I maintain that Seth Rogen destroyed Kevin Smith. Because Seth Rogen is the one who introduced marijuana into Kevin Smith's life in a big way. Yeah,
he did. It was something he said during the making of Zack and Miri. Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
And since then, he's just never been the same as a writer.
I think he's getting better at. I'm not getting better. I have no real proof of that creatively, but
he
hasn't posted anything lately of him being stoned. So, like, he used to do videos all the time of him smoking weed, and he's like, "Yeah, so this is my video review." Oh,
Well, his entire podcast was based around just him getting stoned over the course of it. And don't get me wrong, I don't have a problem in theory with that whole concept. Yeah. It's when it becomes your lifestyle and it takes takes a life of its own that it just becomes a problem.
Yeah.
And it's no different from alcoholism.
Yeah, I guess, yeah. So that was Endgame. That was pretty much everything you'd want in a movie and maybe a little bit more, too. I mean, a big budget movie anyways, like a big blockbuster. It's like the blockbuster to end all blockbusters, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Matt Solar Seats of RogerEbert.com wrote this really excellent essay where he said this is a landmark moment in culture where cinema has been defeated by content.
Yeah.
It was kind of depressing, but at the same time, he was like, I'm a little optimistic, that things can spiral in a different way. And, he's like, it's just the birth of something new, And I kind of thought, well, yeah. That's all I thought. I was like, yeah. I still got I want to reread the essay because it was quite good and quite long. But
I don't think that cinema is being destroyed so much as, it's one of those things where there used to be three major television networks.
Yeah.
And then cable came in and that diluted the field more, but it became more specialized where you had the different areas for different tastes. And with cinema now, the blockbuster has dominated the theater experience, and home cinema has become bigger because it's now possible for your average person to afford a really decently sized TV screen.
Right.
And it is sad that the concept of going to a theater and having the ability to just cut off all other aspects of your life and just focus on the one thing. It is an end of an era, and this movie in many ways is sort of kind of a last blast of that, but it's also a sign of the evolution of mankind, where we're headed and where we're going towards.
Yeah, hopefully
Disney owning everything.
What's that?
Disney owning everything.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you know, if you want to go for if you want to go for the negative aspect of it, Disney will own everything, and you know
They're about to buy Hulu. I don't know what they're going to do with
Yeah.
that. And I guess make it their adult. And
if Disney buys Hulu, then Hulu will become the Disney network, which is what they've kept teasing, and that would probably be a good thing because there's so much content in Hulu already. If you're able to retain that, then it's going to actually be worth it to subscribe to the Disney, you know, the exclusive Disney channel, so to speak.
Disney Plus.
Yeah.
Everyone is with their own something plus.
I'll tell you this: I have no interest in subscribing to Disney as it is.
I'm going to subscribe the fuck out of Disney Plus. That's $6.99 a month.
Yeah, well,
Sounds very worth it.
I have a DVD of a lot of the movies that I care about with Disney, and so that's as far as I'll go with it. Unless I mean, if they acquired Hulu, I might consider renewing my Hulu subscription, which I got rid of a year ago.
They're going to have some original programming as well. There's going to be a Loki show, and there's going to be a
Please tell me the Loki show is a late night talk show.
The Loki show.
Loki Live.
There's also going to be a Winter Soldier and Falcon show as well.
My biggest disappointment with the Infinity Wars films is they failed to bring in Squirrel Girl.
They were going to. They had a pilot. No, not Anna Kendrick. They had the girl who was on the AT&T commercials. She was cast as Squirrel Girl, and I believe they shot a pilot that was meant for Freeform, which used to be ABC Family, but they haven't really. There hasn't been any news about it. Like, I don't know if it got turned down or what. But it doesn't
isn't it like the only Marvel superhero to have taken on Thanos one-on-one and succeeded was Squirrel Girl?
Maybe something like
I'm
that.
pretty sure that's the thing, the record she holds. Like, she's the only superhero to have taken on Thanos one-on-one and won. So that I would have loved to have seen.
All I know is I want to see something more with the TV stuff incorporated into the movies somewhat.
Like maybe because clearly they lost heart somewhere around season 2 of Daredevil.
I'm not saying I want to see Daredevil necessarily in the MCU. He is technically in the MCU. It's just that's his like little neighborhood. But
now watch, they bring the only person they bring back from all of the. No, they just bring Danny Rand into it.
Oh, you know, at the end of Iron Fist 2, he basically gives the Iron Fist power to his girlfriend.
Yeah, that's what Danny Rand would do.
Yeah, but he retains some of it, like the residual power. So he's still technically the Iron Fist. But I don't know. I read the spoiler. I didn't watch.
We're getting into depressing territory here, which is talking about the sad and rapid decline of the MCU TV series.
On Hulu, Marvel is going to do a fucking Ghost Rider show.
That I might watch.
I will watch that.
Now, of course, Ghost Rider was a part of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
But is Nicolas Cage going to play Ghost Rider?
No, it's going to be the Robbie Reyes version of Ghost Rider.
I'm slightly less interested. I want to see a good Ghost Rider movie or show with Nicolas Cage.
Well, you know, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. suggested there is a Johnny Blaze in that universe somewhere. So maybe they can get Nick Cage back. I mean, he's not like, you know, that hard to get for a movie or any project, really. You know, so
will the check clear? Then I'll be in.
That'd be fun. I'd see him paired up with someone and do it. They're going to do that, and they're going to do some other hell-related show.
And now that Disney owns the Fox properties, do you think they're going to do an X-Men crossover with the MCU?
At some point, I think they're going to, but that'll probably be later, you know, like later down the line.
Well, the last one we have is the Dark Phoenix movie, and if you've seen the trailer, I can tell you that movie's going to be a shit show.
Didn't they reshoot the ending, which was supposed to be in space, to take place on a train?
All I know from the trailer is it just is complete bullshit.
It doesn't really look good. But to be fair, the X-Men series for a while, like a long while, has not been very good. Even though I gave at the time a positive review to what was the
First
one
Class?
Apocalypse. Apocalypse is probably the worst of the bunch, actually, when you think about it.
The thing with the X-Men movies is even in the worst ones, there are moments that are kind of brilliant.
There's kind of some sparks here and there, and we keep.
And it's their failure to follow up on those that just make it so painful to watch.
Addicted to the X-Men because the X-Men represent so many different things thematically about ourselves and our society, but also it's kind of cool that everyone has their own individual power that's specific to them typically, and there's something magical about that, so it's kind of like, oh, I got my favorite X-Men character.
What X-Men power would you want?
I've always liked the power of that Iceman has. I've always enjoyed thinking about that, that you can make things really cold. I like Colossus's power.
So you can chill a beer in your hands.
Yeah, I can chill a beer in my hand. I think that's practical. But also, I like Colossus. I was a big Colossus fan growing up. I thought he was really cool character. Not just that look, that sheen that he had on him, that chrome, but also the fact that he's just this big guy who can turn his skin into metal, or his skin is metal, basically.
When I was a kid, I was a big Gambit fan, but nowadays when I look at his character, he has magical cards that he throws.
No, happens to turn the card. He's just a big card fan, and he happens to weaponize those. He can essentially weaponize anything. But Gambit is a cool character, and you would think I would like him, especially because he's from Louisiana. But I never hated him or anything. I just didn't really. I thought he was cool on the animated series, but that was about it. I never really got into him. But I did get into Colossus and Iceman and Jubilee, I think. Yeah. So, yeah, I had my own favorites.
How about you, Hawk? What X-Men character would you be?
Would I be?
Or have? What power
Magneto.
would you have?
He's like, fuck it, I'd be Magneto.
Magneto's fucking awesome. He's my favorite character in the X-Men universe.
I think Michael Fassbender doing Magneto was a good choice, but he's got the unfortunate reality of being in the new X-Men movies.
Yeah. The thing that has always bugged me about Magneto is that his name is inaccurate because his power is not magnetism. His power is the ability to manipulate all metal.
Yeah, but for the layman's, I mean, yeah.
Right. But copper isn't, or bullets. Like you can stop bullets, but bullets are not magnetic. So
typically, no. Yeah.
Yeah,
I know, but Metal Nito sounds super lame.
Metal Nito. Metal is Nito.
Metal Nito. I am Metal Nito.
Yeah, I still can't believe how bad they fucked up the X-Men continuity. I mean, you'd think they would be a thread throughout that made sense, and then they could time travel and play with that a little bit. Instead, everything makes no sense. Like they're 10 years older between all these movies. These new
it's fucking 2 years. Like, hey, it's the 80s now. 10 years later, it's like, oh look,
right, that's what I mean. Yeah,
it's in his fucking 30s or whatever.
X-Men Apocalypse was so bad it made Oscar Isaac look bad.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah, it did.
And I liked aspects of
the continuity of these movies.
Yeah, the continuity is bad. I enjoyed Days of Future Past. I know you didn't, Hawk. I at the time was tricked to like Apocalypse.
There are moments, I would argue, even in the worst X-Men movies that are interesting.
Yeah.
Honestly, the big miracle of the whole X-Men series is still Logan, because Logan manages to be an awesome, an awesome, really like standalone movie, and that's what's great about it. Is you don't have to see any previous X-Men movie to get your full experience out.
You just have to have kind of a basic inkling as to what this is all about,
Mm-hmm.
And it's right up there, yeah, definitely. So yeah, what are we looking forward to coming up soon, movie wise? Like, what is being released this weekend? I don't even.
Ugly Dolls. Ugly Dolls.
Ugly Dolls.
and I threw myself on the fucking sword when the email went out for what we're reviewing this month. I was like, I will review Ugly Dolls if I can review John Wick 3. And Zach said, be careful what you wish for. And, yeah, I have to see Ugly Dolls review this weekend, but in exchange I got John Wick 3.
Oh, I've got a month of wonderfulness. I have The Intruder this weekend, and then the next week I have Palms.
Intruder is getting a lot of laughs in theaters, from what I hear.
Which is fine. I'm okay with that. But the next week I have Palms, aka Diane Keaton is dying and decides to be an elderly cheerleader for some reason. And then I have A Dog's Journey.
Oh no.
Yeah, I have A Dog's Journey. I didn't even see A Dog's Purpose, and I'm not going to.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Have pity on me.
Still, though, later this month we're going to get some stuff that's okay, right?
Yeah. Well, this coming weekend, the movies being released are Long Shot, El Chicano, The Intruder, and Ugly Dolls. So maybe not the best weekend. Long Shot might be okay, but it's also Seth Rogen playing a stoner, which is like, again.
Everything, yeah.
Okay.
What's later this month? I mean,
Detective Pikachu.
No, that's not. I'm thinking of something else that's coming out at the end of May, but I can't.
John Wick 3 Parabellum.
That might be the one, but I think there's something else.
Oh yeah, and Aladdin. How about Aladdin?
Aladdin's the one I was thinking of. Yeah, I don't know how to feel about that.
John Negroni mentioned this on Twitter. The guy who came up with the Pixar theory. Is it weird that Aladdin was not advertised before Endgame?
I don't think it's weird at all, because I think people saw the trailer for the first Aladdin, and the moment they saw the Will Smith as the genie, they're like, "This is dumb."
I mean, it appears that Disney has also lost faith in that movie.
Oh,
which, to be fair, it looks like shit.
Have you guys seen the fucking Sonic the Hedgehog trailer?
Yeah.
Can we all agree that if you give an unlimited budget and creative freedom to Guy Ritchie,
is that a Guy Ritchie movie, really?
Yeah. Yes, Aladdin's a Guy Ritchie.
Sonic
movie. I was talking about Sonic.
Oh, sorry.
No, Aladdin is Guy Ritchie. Sonic is fucking. Who cares? Actually, that is mean. I gotta stop doing that.
No, I think you're right about that, because Sonic the Hedgehog, who cares?
Yeah, Jim Carrey actually.
It's
I know.
It's okay. All right, let me look him up just so that we can be nice. Jeff Fowler is the one.
Jeff
who directed
Fowler,
it.
I believe he did. Is this his first movie?
His last. He did one other movie, a short film, Go for Broke. Do you remember that Academy Award winning short film? Or nominated short film?
Gopher broke, and it stars a gopher. All right.
Yeah.
You know what? Okay.
He also had something to do with an episode of Gilmore Girls, and that's about all that there are credit wise.
Oh, well, of course. They just picked someone out of a hat. No offense, Jeff Fowler.
This is Sonic the Hedgehog, his directorial debut.
The movie looks fucking terrible, though, but, I'm sure you're a nice guy.
The art design of him, of Sonic in this, it's like, this is clearly people who don't know who Sonic the Hedgehog is. The only thing this movie has going for it is I kind of like the idea of Jim Carrey playing Dr. Robotnik, except for he's not an egg-shaped actor, and so how are they going to make him convincing as the Eggman?
They could at least put him in a costume, right?
Yeah. The problem is they're going to put him in a fat suit.
He's not egg-shaped. He's just regular shaped. He's Jim Carrey shaped, but he has the ridiculous mustache. He has the goggles.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I've seen the trailer, and I know that it's just not.
And I feel so bad for James Marsden.
I think Jim Carrey has a chance of pulling off at least an entertaining Eggman. I just wish that he was egg-shaped.
This movie seems to be a cross between fucking Pixels and the Rocky and Bullwinkle live-action movie.
Actually,
somebody on Reddit was pointing out, like, the biggest problem with these movies based on things is that they focus on a human character, and then the property character is like a side person that comes into their life. Like, focus on the goddamn fucking main character. Like,
and by the way, Sega, did they learn nothing from Sonic 06?
Sonic 06? or anything. Like every single movie that is based on a property like this, that like, oh, let's focus on this fucking boring ass human character, and then the CG character comes in as part of their life and they have an arc, and it's just like so early 2000s, and it's really, really terrible.
Hollywood's been making the same mistake for a long time. It's like Conan the Destroyer. They were like, well, I guess Conan's not interesting enough, so let's give him an annoying teenage sidekick.
Yeah.
Oh, Christ. Why does Hollywood do this?
Beastmaster 2 through the portal of time. Let's send him to Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Not that Beastmaster is.
I mean, and Masters of the Universe, same deal. Let's send them to the.
Let's send him to California.
Yeah, let's send them to present day Los Angeles and have a bunch of teen characters who no one gives a shit about.
I've had a scene where they eat fried chicken, just like in Green Book.
I like how you tied Green Book into this.
It's like I'm gonna teach you how to eat fried chicken because I'm an Italian stereotype and you're some jazz guy.
You're getting the greasy blankie.
Oh, I'm gonna get grease on my blankie.
I really hate making fun of Viggo Mortensen's performance in that movie because I think it's a legitimately solid performance.
I'm busting my balls.
It's just that trailer just pushed that line really hard.
Meatballs.
That would have been a perfect time to hit stop broadcast.
But you didn't, so now we gotta keep going until we find another moment.
Meatball.